Hi guys, welcome back to Scott Family Homestead. I'm Christine. Today we're going to talk about a project that I started last year involving dual purpose chickens, and I'm going to tell you all about how I epically failed at this project. What we learned, which is a ton of good information, especially if you're breeding your own chickens. I'm going to start by talking about how this started last year and what my plans were, because I did talk about this on a video last year, but I have a ton of new subscribers since then, so welcome if you're new here. I'm so happy you're here. Let's talk about this project and what my initial plans were. What I wanted to do was get a dual purpose chicken that I could breed here on the farm and keep a supply of possible meat birds and egg layers going with these large bodied birds that do really well in Wisconsin. So I bought 100 special blacks from Sunnyside Hatchery. And knowing that they're a hybrid, I knew that was kind of a risk because they don't say what they're hybrid of, and I didn't know how the breeding was going to go and what I would get as an end product. But anyways, we raised out these 100 chickens. We put them in what we call our trailer tractor. Basically, an old trailer, we used cattle panels and built an arch over it, and we raised out all these chickens in there. So we got this really cheap trailer off of Craigslist. Paid a couple $100s for it, and we added some cattle panels, a tarp, roosts, and a couple of end walls. And this serves as their coop for nighttime, and then they're on the pasture during the day. And the plan was to take all of the really big roosters and use them for meat last year, which we did. We ended up butchering them in the fall, and then at about 20 weeks old, what we did is we took the biggest bodied hens, the best condition hens to breed out meat birds, and we kept those for ourselves. I believe we kept about 15. And we sold all the rest of the hens as egg layers to a couple of different customers. So we had people buy in bulk, like large quantities of hens that were just about to start laying eggs. So we took everything that we kept, which was like 3 roosters and 15 hens, and we put it in with all the rest of our chickens and kept them there over winter, and they started laying eggs early and often, and they were really great for that. And so we started hatching out eggs, just barnyard mix, this spring. Got some sandhill cranes. We started hatching them out this spring. We ended up just taking a variety of eggs from our coop, and when we hatched them out, we had tons of black chickens. So it was like these chickens were laying really well. We had a lot of their eggs in the incubator, but then also the genes were really strong and they came through. So it was like, okay, perfect. This is great. Actually see one of the roosters right here. So we had 2 batches of chickens that we hatched out ourselves. Tons of them showed up with the traits that we were hoping for, even though we have other roosters and other hens, and so we thought this is perfect. We're going to separate these guys out now. We're going to hatch out some of the special blacks on their own. Now, shortly after I hatched out these 2 batches of chickens, my husband had a stroke. And so we decided that the dual purpose project wasn't going to work for us. We did not have the time to hatch out more chickens. His medical care was really up in the air as far as what was going to happen next. I wonder how long this chicken's been stuck. Woo! All right. Leave that one alone. There you go. Freedom! Good grief. Sometimes they get their heads stuck in there, but I've never seen one push their wings through and get totally stuck like that. Okay, Okay, so you'll see a lot of them come up here, especially the little ones, are all those black chickens. They're going to be great egg layers. They're really pretty. Some of them, like you can see this hen back here, they have like the black heads, black legs, everything. Really pretty chickens, great layers, and they make great meat birds. Some of ours dressed out just as big as a Cornish cross. It's just a different distribution of meat. So if you've raised Cornish cross before, you know they grow like really big breast meat, and the dual purpose aren't proportioned that way. It's more of an overall distribution. So you don't get so much of that breast meat, but it's still a really good bird, feeds our family. And so I don't have regrets about that. But anyways, so my husband had a stroke and we weren't able to hatch out more chickens. He asked me, please don't add more chaos to this, because I was handling all of the animals at this point, hauling bales of hay to the cows, feeding the pigs. He's on lifting restrictions. And so anyways, I didn't totally want to abandon the project, and I talked to a friend about it, and he was interested in dual purpose birds. And so I put them back in the trailer, and we closed them up in there. They had plenty of space. We had about 10 hens and 2 roosters. We waited about 2 weeks of having them in there and collected the eggs and sold them as hatching eggs to our friend. Well, fast forward 21 days, their eggs start hatching, and they are all different colors. A total variety barnyard mix of chickens. So at this point I'm slightly embarrassed because I knew that there was a little bit of risk, being that it was a hybrid, and I didn't know what the Special Blacks hybrid was. So Sunnyside doesn't say what they use to breed these two. You get a black chicken and it has some red in it. I'm not sure where the red comes from. I think the black might be like an Australorp or maybe even a black sex-link. I'm not entirely sure. They do not say on their website. I've looked into it. A lot of people have questions, but nobody knows the exact mix of what these are. So you could end up with blackbirds, you could end up with red ones, but they were hatching out ones that looked almost like our Easter eggers, and so that made me start to research what in the world was going on. One of the things that I learned is that when the eggs are fertilized in a hen, that can actually stay in there for 3 to 4 weeks, and sometimes longer. That means these guys, my Easter egger roosters, could have fertilized the eggs that were in that coop. So what it really comes down to is 2 things. I didn't have them separated long enough to only have the Special Black genes coming through. The other thing is we just don't know what the hybrid mix is. I mean, there's possibility it could be Orpington or any of these larger bodied breeds could make up this Special Blacks mix. And unless you find out from Sunnyside, we won't know for sure, except for what genes were coming through. But honestly, so many genes were coming through, just because we did not have them separated out long enough. So I know all of the hens were Special Blacks, and I know that the roosters that were in there were Special Blacks, but there was still a possibility of having some of these other genes mixed in from our other roosters. So at this point it really comes down to like Punnett squares and genes and biology, and I was a biology major and I feel like I had a pretty good handle on it, but I didn't expect such a stark contrast to come out when we breed these chickens together. What I learned here, if you're going to do a dual purpose project like this, a multi-year hatching out your own meat birds, we started out on the wrong foot. Don't choose a hybrid. Pick something that is a purebred bird. There's a lot of really good dual purpose options out there. You just have to find one that has the traits that you want for your homestead. Secondly, from that point forward, we did all right. We got rid of the smaller hens. We kept the bigger ones. We dressed out a lot of the males so we could see potentially how much meat we were going to get, and we were satisfied with that and kept them through the winter. This could work really well, like continuing a dual purpose flock for the purpose of raising meat, especially if you're in a situation where you can't acquire things like Cornish cross easily. Now, we're not much of preppers where we have to have everything here, but I have started a lot of breeding programs here with our pigs and our cows, and I like the idea of being able to do that here on our homestead, of keeping something going. You do want to add in genetics, so you're not just breeding multi-generationally, so maybe bring in a different rooster of the same breed with different genetics so that you can keep that going. But I do know some people can get away with it for 2 or 3 generations. Just make sure you're still getting good hatching rates and good genetics coming out the other end of what you really are going for, what your goals are. It is a project that could work out. I'm still glad that we did it. We learned a lot along the way. One being, if you want to breed specific breed, even if it's not dual purpose, say you have a bunch of barred rocks and you want to hatch out just barred rocks, plan on keeping those separate for at least a month before you start collecting eggs from them to hatch out. That was a huge lesson for me. I thought a couple of weeks would be enough. Honestly, I thought a few days would be enough, but we gave it a couple of weeks just to be sure. It still wasn't enough. They got this whole mix when they hatched out. I've got a couple of my little ducklings. These guys are little newbies. They're joining the homestead. They just came out of the coop. They've been under heat and in a little brooder box in there for a while, and they're now out. We have one male duck. I should actually show you if I can find him around here. He had a mate who unfortunately passed away, and so he's been alone. So we got a couple of ducks to add so that he wouldn't be lonely. And they're out here by their little duck pool, and that's so cute. They're doing really well. He's right back here with them the whole time. I was very concerned about this duck because he has female coloring, but he didn't before. Let me show you a clip of what this duck looked like before. So colorful and beautiful. Now he has this very dull coloring. Almost looks like what I would expect a female to look like. So after doing a little bit of research, I actually found that for some months out of the year, certain ducks will get what's called eclipse coloring. Basically, when they're not breeding, and it's not breeding season, they take on a very dull coloring so that they can camouflage right in, and they're not as flashy as they are with their normal male coloring. I was seriously concerned about him, like, is he turning into a female or did something happen? I had a brief moment where I thought, did somebody switch out our ducks because he looks nothing like he looked before? But apparently it's called eclipse coloring, and so that was another new little lesson that I learned this month. So anyways, that's my little dual purpose breeding program journey that I've been on. I hope you learned something. I know I sure did, and maybe we'll try this again next year. The biggest trouble with starting this project is that I knew it was going to be a multi-year project before I got answers for it. So I've been waiting over a year to find this out, and now I realize we're going to have to start over if we really want to get a program going like this. And so maybe next year will be the year, once everything is settled with my husband, we can do a new dual purpose project. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. We have all kinds of cool homestead projects going on here, lots of things to learn. We are first generation homesteaders. We're learning everything on our own, and we love to hear what you guys have to share, and we learn a lot through our viewers and commenters, and so we appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.